I set up my personal personal Instagram, and then the business Cosmic Tea Hour, and going through our YouTube channel as well. Hi Denise, how are you? We're everywhere at once. Today, I miss my friends, just all of you collectively. I have 700 and something of you on Facebook and like 900 of you on Instagram, and that's not even including who we have with Cosmic Tea Hour. And it's impossible for me to talk to 1,000 people today the way that I want to. Hi Mama, how are you? So I decided I'm going to create this moment to just kind of jump online so I can talk to everybody at once, whether they see it now or later. I love you guys. I miss you guys. Putting together the show, there's like 1,000,001 things to do, and my head is spinning. So I'm taking some time out to have some tea time and to really just kind of connect with all my friends and talk about all the things that we have going on, why we have them going on. But I just really want to be a person with my friends. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you guys here. I'm glad that you're with me. I don't even know where to begin other than I just want to really, really be present. Oh yeah, I'm totally good. I'm not in a bad mood or I'm not upset. I just, with so much going on, I feel like I'm spinning around, and I was getting a little bit like overwhelmed this morning about like all the different responsibilities of everything. And I was like, when I get into these moments and I see that fun things that people are doing online, or events that people have, or like connecting with their friends, like if I wasn't doing these things, which I absolutely love doing, I would be with my friends. I would be with other people, and I would be a person, or I'd be focusing on creating jewelry and doing stuff for Zenshine, or I'd have a bunch of readings booked up. But these shows take a lot to accomplish, which I love. I love being able to put them together. And now we've added the magazine into the mix. So I feel like my connections with people, my friends, can go by the wayside. And I do try to prioritize connecting to and talking to everyone, and just keeping a place in people's lives while I'm organizing these things. So this was my way. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. Thanks, Jackie, for the tea. I appreciate it. It's delicious, and I'm drinking it right now with my fancy yuzu honey from Japan that Jackie got me. She's here. But I wanted to take a minute. I was like, I miss you guys. And I miss so many people at one time that sometimes it overwhelms me. I don't know who to pick up the phone first. I don't have time to pick up the phone. But I think about you, and then I'll start sending out a whole bunch of text message. Hey guys, thinking about you. Hey, I love you. Hey, just to kind of like connect. And then when people start messaging me back, it starts getting into the crosshairs of like, okay, I got to write the magazine. I got to do this. I got to do that. So I'm definitely not complaining. I'm so thrilled to be where I'm at, where we have the magazine, we have the events, we added in another podcast to really highlight the vendors. We started that last night, and just all the pieces. I'm so excited for all the pieces, but being the organizer of all the pieces is like, wow, oh my God. And so like there's so much that goes through my mind all at one time. And I was thinking about getting started and the why we do these things, and all these beautiful people that I work with and all my friends that I love to connect to. And I was like, you know what, this is a good time to powwow out. And I was thinking about some pieces that like I was putting together. I haven't done a mentorship or a class in a while on anything business related. And I think a lot of people separate things. And my business coach, as well as, my teacher at high school, my teacher in college, there we go, had said to me, Theresa, you have a bunch of different classes and you're working full time and you're getting a little bit overwhelmed. Instead of seeing the things that you're doing separately, see them as one big class. And that it was the best advice. I had a 3.9 in college because of that man. I had different views and experiences in colleges because of his advice. And that's the same exact advice that I use today, doing all of these different avenues, which are big, all onto their own if you just did one of them. But doing all of them is an unbelievable passion and willpower that keeps them going. And I don't want to sound salesy, and I don't want to be in people's faces. And I do these to benefit people in a big way, because being beneficial to others. I got constructive feedback from a my own business counselor, a couple years back. And she said, Theresa, my advice to you is to just focus on yourself, focus on creating the jewelry, focus on making opportunities for yourself, because not everybody takes what they do as seriously as you, and you really want to invest the energy into yourself and fill your own cup and take yourself to a point of financial success, freedom, take all your effort, pour it into yourself. And then when you get to that point, pour into someone else. And that's really great advice, and she's not wrong. I just couldn't fathom such an isolated way of moving through the world, especially when that I was taught around the same time by my business mentor that our success in business is because of the relationships that we have, and that we all need each other. So when you create a business and your financial life as you know it depends on it, that is going to come from a place of relationship, not just transaction. A transaction is something that happens in the moment. You want this mug, you buy this mug, and now that's it. That's all that happened there. But when you create a relationship with the people that you are working with, buying from, now how many mugs of this will you sell? Maybe you start selling what's in the mug. Maybe you sell something, a scone or something, in addition to the tea or the mug itself. And you create a piece of your life quality, a piece of connection and joy, a friendship, something that works symbiotically. And so, like, one of my favorite books that I ever read was this book called Business of the 21st Century. So when I sit in these moments and I contemplate to myself, why do I do what I do? Or what gives me motivation? I'm a deep thinker. I analyze, and I do not have a 30-second attention span. I have a 30-second come down window, but my attention span to the things that interest me is ferocious. And a lot of people tell me when I'm creating things, whether it's a flyer or a class or a show, Theresa, people have 30-second attention spans. It's 10 seconds. It's a 10-second window. You really have to just make a breadcrumb out of the loaf of bread that you have. But my brain doesn't work like a loaf. My brain doesn't work like a breadcrumb. So, one of the things that I've had to learn is how to minimize myself to be palatable to a majority of other people. And I think sometimes I could feel like I'm getting lost personally if I minimize myself too much, or I'm engaging with so many other people, and it's just so much energy. So taking the time out to just sit with myself and my own selfhood, or to connect with people that can go deeper, have a deeper connection with me, and that's the reason why I love the friends that I have so much, because we can be on the phone for an hour. We can talk about anything and everything, thinking about spiritual subjects, thinking about business or God or food, government, politics, economy. I love to learn. I love to read. I love to research. And I love stringing all these pieces together and putting it out to people. And so that depth is something that nourishes me but I can only share that or sometimes feel, or it's so overly reinforced to me constantly, be less, be less, be less, be less. And I'm like, in order to fit in, not fit in, but like in order to be palatable. And it's not that my friends want me to be less of me. It's that they want me to, because they're like, you have such great things to say, but the way that you frame what you have to say is going to catch the attention of the individuals that you are interacting with and allow them to hear the more that you have to say, because most people aren't as deep as you. Most people don't do what you do. You are not like other people. And I feel like, well, okay, I'll do my best, or I'll do it because that's what I have to do. Hey, Diane. So, and it's not, I'm not sad. Like, I know that, like, I'm trying to be conscientious of how I'm sounding right now, because I don't want the misrepresentation to be that I am sad or I am, I feel contemplative. This is how I relax. And when I relax this way, I normally would be on the phone with somebody I am friends with, where I could have this conversation between just us and them. But I don't want just a us and them conversation, because like I said in the beginning of doing this podcast, I miss a lot of my friends right now. I want to connect to a lot of my friends right now. So exactly. This is my reset time. And I have a head swirling full of like things to do, and also the inspiration for why I do it. And it just feels like, I know that I will be more effective at everything I'm doing and for everyone if I just take a moment to exist with everyone. I love you too, Denise. Thank you. So I feel like also too, by even having this conversation with you guys, that I get to get clarity just by existing as a person. When you're on a podcast or you're in a class, you are the person who's sharing information for who is listening to you. So you get your notes together and you kind of structure yourself. I don't have structure right now. I have a rave with a bunch of squirrels in it, and they are dancing ferociously. And, so this is not well thought out, and I didn't structure it, and I don't have notes for it. I just wanted a place to be myself and connect with people that I don't have to be well thought out or well put together in order to make the connection. So thank you guys for holding that space for me. And the reason I brought this book up, because I think about it with everything that I do, because I feel like it was such a big part of my beginning, when I really started entering into the business world, succeeding financially, moving past beliefs that are limiting. Nancy and I will be on tonight at 9. We had multiple subjects that we wanted to, that we want to do, so we didn't narrow it down yet. So 7:30 tonight, it will be Julian, Angela, myself, and Julian, Angela, and myself. And Angela's going to talk about Stargate, and Peter's going to talk about astrology, because a lot of people have been calling Peter. He actually thought of the topic for this one. A lot of people were calling Peter and saying, Theresa, hey, Lena. A lot of people were saying, people that Peter reads for, he's been reading for like 45 years. And they're like, the economy and Donald Trump, and is it good? Is it bad? What is it? All right, bye, Diana. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it this? Is it that? What is going on? So Peter called me and said, honey, there's so much fear everywhere. People want to know what's going to happen in this new government that we're in. And then I'm like, okay, well, thinking about the podcast and how do we make that work. And then he goes, and Angela has been wanting to talk about Stargate and the advances that, things that she's been learning. And then I was like, well, why don't we, instead of, I'm not a political conversationalist. I don't always get a chance to read the news. I do my best to be an informed citizen and learn things from people. And I don't really watch the news. I will go and like go on different websites to try to get fact-based information and do my best to keep up. That being said, I don't want to posture as if I know things either that I don't necessarily know. So, and I will look to things like astrology and numerology to get a feel for the direction of my own life. I will tap into my own high self and I will meditate on where the year, like for the moment, it's hard, when we're in the future, oftentimes we're in ego. So I don't live the future time. It goes against what I've been taught and what I practice. But if we have to, which business usually does, so my events to plan out, like even my vendors called me up last year, what's the schedule for the year? I know what's going on tomorrow. Maybe. I know what's going on right now. Who knows what's going to happen later today, but in business, you have to be ahead. And especially too, planning out the venues, people need you to book in advance. And then, what is the other thing? Planning, like we have the magazine. We have to be ahead. Doing the podcast, we always have multiple things that we want to talk about before we bring it up. And we'll have these ideas sitting in like a nest, and then we pick them out like eggs when we're ready to talk about them. But if something comes up that's a really good subject and we all feel it, we'll leave the eggs in the basket, or the nest as it were, and and then talk about the thing that's presented to us, like this thing with politics that Peter brought to the table. So I was like, well, let's talk about the astrology of it. Let's talk about the numerology of it. I can't control what other people are going to decide to do, but what I can do is give people tools, give people information, alternative information. And Nancy and I talk about this all the time. Not everybody, when they're experiencing something, sees the advice that you give and says, oh, let me do that too. She goes, sometimes people can think that you sound very Pollyanna. Oh, life is wonderful. Oh, be happy. Oh, da 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 da. Like just happiness and sunshine and butterflies. La 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 la. They don't realize the work that you did to get to that place all the time. And that's just a very rough statement. It's a paraphrase of a scenario, not a like, this is how it is. Okay. Like I said, this is not scripted and or polished, and my brain is a little delayed with processing right now because I still have bruising in my brain in my processing region, so my brain is moving a little bit slower right now, so bear with me. So with all that in mind, I've been really contemplating what it means to be relatable without losing myself in the process, to hold on to what my values are about not being so Pollyanna. Or, to me, it's not Pollyanna. To me, it is like living in a positive way sure beats the alternative. And I got that way through dealing with a lot of hardships and having to contour myself into, well, what's going to help me be my best self, and what kind of life do I want to live? And then therefore I'm going to embrace what works. I don't want to do what doesn't work. I want to do what works. So when hey Jay, what's up? So when I am connecting to others, I'm not Pollyanna, and it's false positivity or it's some BS. I'm doing something because I learned that it works, and I want to share what works with others. So hopefully, if they decide whatever it is that they resonate with or want to do, I respect everybody has a unique independent journey and personal feelings, and we all have a life to live. I can't control what people do. I can't make their decisions for them, and I don't know what their life journey is. So they have to decide for themselves how they want to live. I can only be the provider or the offerer of what would be beneficial to the collective, in my view, because it was beneficial for me. My view is, if we had a world full of healthy, well-adjusted people, I share this brief synopsis quite a bit with different people that I meet, and I often include it in my classes. The first book about Raising Your Child, that was published and included Hug Them, Hold Them, Feed Them, Tuck Them in at Bed at Night, and contact their emotional intelligence, interact with them emotionally, was written in 1950s. And it was Dr. Spock who wrote the book. And it was equivalent to like snake oil out of the back of a caravan. Because in the 1940s and beyond, previously, was the concept of independence for the child. Leave them alone and let them be and foster intelligence. But what they found in these groups of people is that by fostering all this independence, there was really big important pieces that were missing in emotional intelligence and the ability to connect with others and having better health. When we connect to each other, when we connect to ourselves in a healthy way, our physical health is improved, our emotional health is improved, our emotional intelligence is improved, our ability to connect with each other. I was doing readings and working with people, crystals. I've been doing that stuff my whole life, even when I was a kid. I just decided to take what I already am insanely and passionate about and turn it into a business. And for a long time I struggled with turning it into a business because it's something sacred to me, and how could I put a price on it? But at the same time, if I want to give myself the freedom to do it and to be the person who can benefit so many others, I have to give myself the freedom to create space and time to provide it. And because I did get so much feedback at how effective I am, if it can change people's lives, money is just energy, and money is an energy of love. So I'm creating an exchange out of love. You're giving me money to put a roof over my head and pay for my car, my insurance, my groceries, my whatever, and I'm giving you a way to heal so that the rest of your life and life quality can be transformed, so that you can get past your hardships, so that you can get a tool to live in a better way. So to me, it's all about exchange. So what set me free when I was having to make this decision about becoming a professional and taking these things into consideration to bring them into a professional sphere, because think about it, I would be working a full-time job, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and then doing this stuff on the side, not professionally, just on the side, and then I would still be making time for myself or my friends somewhere. So if I'm going to spend 40 to 60 hours at a job getting paid an hourly rate, doing something I enjoy, but nothing that ever makes my heart feel as good as it does when I'm working with people the way that I'm due, if I could take that same 40, 60 hours and invest it into holding space for others and giving them tools to make their life a life that they feel better living in exchange for income, why wouldn't I try to do that? I know what I bring to the table, but the only reason I say try is because are people going to realize that as a value and be willing to take away from that value? Because if it doesn't work for me, if I don't make money because people don't value what I have to bring to the table, then I can't hold that space, and then I go work that job. But if people see what I bring to the table, like when they get a custom piece of a custom necklace or a custom bracelet or a custom pendant made for them, they're getting a healing and a reading in the same way. And we're sitting together and we're really spending an intimate kind of time talking about who you are right now and where do you want to go with your life right now. And then the messages come in, and then maybe I feel guided to take a couple crystals and say, hey, you want to just lay down real quick? Let's do a healing to get these things out of the way. This is it's maternal. It is a labor of love, and I am literally loving you and holding space for you in a way that is not offered. Go ahead, go find it in the world out there. There's a lot of different Reiki practitioners and a lot of different people that sell crystals, but bringing all these pieces together and putting the intention behind it in the way that I feel so guided and overwhelmed with joy to do, you're not going to find that out there, because that energy, that love, that unique thing that I'm able to pour into it comes from in here. And I recognize that when we are celebrating artists, vendors, musicians, others who are in this sphere that I work with, or the vendor community, every single person, whether you're a real estate agent or you work at a car wash or you're at a grocery store, whenever you decide to do what makes your heart feel at home, feel aligned, feel right, that is your calling. You're owning it. And so many people are afraid to own it because the construct of this matrix has given them a lot of belief systems and conditions about survival. And what are we taught from our past? So, we first were on farms and we're minding our business. We're having a good time living in oneness with the natural world. The Industrial Revolution comes. Now the Industrial Revolution takes us off those farms and forces us into factories, perpetuating that feeling of poverty. People were eating at that time. There were some people who were making great money at that time, hand over fist kind of money, while other people, a majority of people, were not surviving as equally great. So 1950s comes and the Spock book is written, but it takes a little while for that to catch. And then there's the 1960s and 1970s, and we have all this free love and make love, not war. And we have a place where that we experience a renaissance in America where art and music and connection, you really see how it bridges people together. And the 70s comes and it starts adding in more freedom, more things to think about. And the 80s come, and this is when the drugs really started to take into effect and more people started getting creative. But there was still a lot of pivot. People want to get away from what was into what is. And some people wanted to stay with what was. And the world changed significantly. The 90s come, the world changes significantly. The 2000s come. The world I live in now in 2025 is an entirely different world than the world that I grew up in. And I'm only 37 years old. I'm not 60. I'm not 80. I'm not 90. I'm not talking about when Pearl Harbor had D-Day. I'm saying in 37 years, the world is a completely and utterly different place than the world that I grew up in. And, everybody is whether you are in my age group or older, we are feeling that together. We are growing and expanding together. The world is a changing place, and I have there's so many different subjects, so many different conversation points where that can go and that plugs itself into. And in order to save time and brain power, I'm not going to jump into all those avenues right now because I still want to share this book with you guys and I still want to talk about everything that we have going on right now. So thank you for being with me through this. Thank you for listening to me. Like I said, I just wanted to connect and share some insights I had. Like I told you, my brain is a little bit blah right now, but we're working on it. So this really changed my mind. This book, like I said, is written, it's called The Business of the 21st Century. It's by Robert Kiyosaki. And when I read these pages for the first time ever, I cried, sob, ugly girl cry, because I felt like I wasn't alone. And it really was such a awakening to what my family had taught me about money, or my life experience taught me about money, and that I could really be myself. And that there was a tribe out there. Just because I had not met these people yet didn't mean that I was alone either. And at this time in my life, when I started really exercising this type of a book or other ones like it, I felt at a very lonely point in my life. And even though I didn't have the tribe that I do now, reading these pages helped me to see that I was nowhere near as alone as I thought. Hey, Jovi, what's up, girl? So he says, in this page here, the opening of a mind. Over the years that followed, my mind began to open up. That incredibly successful business failed a few years after it started. It was a humbling experience and a very positive one because it caused me to look closer at the world around me and to ask questions. More of what my rich dad had taught me began to sink in and my perspective grew. It was not long before I had built another successful business, and then another, and then another. And unlike that first business, these lasted. I came to realize that while personal success is fulfilling, it's much more fulfilling when you can help many others create their own success as well. During those years, I also became powerfully drawn to the idea of not only becoming rich myself, but also finding ways to help others become rich. I came to realize that while personal success is fulfilling, it's much more fulfilling when you can help many others create their own success as well. For the next 15 years, I kept hearing negative things about network marketing, mostly from people I knew. Eventually, I decided to check it out for myself. In the early 1990s, I ran into a friend named Bill, who was a retired multimillionaire. We got to talking, and lo and behold, Bill told me that he was involved in building a network marketing business. Bill is very sharp, a very savvy guy. I knew he had just completed commercial real estate projects worth over $1 billion. I asked him why on earth he would be involved in network marketing. For years, he told me people have asked me for real estate investment tips. They want to know if they can invest with me, but they can't because most don't have the $50,000 or $100,000 it takes to get into my level of real estate investment. In fact, many of them have absolutely no money at all. Some are 2 paychecks away from bankruptcy. So they look for these cheap, no money down deals that are often very bad investments. In network marketing, I can actually help people make the kind of money they need to do some serious investing. The more people I help do that, the more investors I have. Besides, he added, I really love working with people who are hungry to learn and grow. It's a drag working with people who think they already know it all, which is what often ends up happening in my real estate deals. The people I work with in network marketing are genuinely excited about new ideas. After a few more minutes of conversation, I had to make a dash for the airport, but over the next few months we continued our dialogue, and we did it. My respect for network marketing and what it represented grew. In 1994, I started researching the industry in earnest. I went to every presentation I had heard about and listened closely to everything that I heard. I studied the literature of the company after company, looking at their track records and examining them closely, the way I would do my due diligence on any business venture I was considering and investing in. I even joined a few companies, if I liked what I saw, just so I could learn more about them and see what the experience was like from the inside. Eventually, and this is the part that really got to me, I began meeting some of these company leaders, and I was stunned to find that they were some of the most intelligent, kind, ethical, moral, spiritual, and professional people I had met in all my years of business. Once I got over my own prejudices and met people I respected and related to, I saw that I had found the heart of the industry, and I was amazed at what I had found. When I had first stumbled upon the concept in the first opportunity meeting in 1975, my mind had been closed tight to the idea. Now, some 20 years later, my view had completely changed. So, there's so much more to say here, but Robert Kiyosaki is someone that I really resonate with because he started out being homeless before he did any kind of business idea. And when I read these lines, when I read that portion, everyone, a lot of the ideas around me when I was growing up, money is evil. Money is bad. People who have money are like this. They don't care about the little guy. They're the Bill Gates and the Jeff Bezos and the terrible, terrible people who have money, and how, people who are poor, they may not have money, but they're good people. And most of the time, they're honest people. And not everyone, but most of the time. And it kind of demonized having money, or demonized having a comfortable living. And so many of the same people that demonized people who had money were also people that had none and were not comfortable and acted a certain way because of what they had. And now here I am in my early 20s, maybe 30, and I'm in my 20s and I'm just trying to figure out what my life looks like, because my parents didn't really have a lot of money or money advice to give me other than go to work and work hard and work yourself up and get insurance and this and that and live in this world, because that's the world that they grew up in. But and they both are incredibly hardworking people, but they were always for all the hard work you do, you give your entire self to your work, and then at the end of the day, what do you have for it? And then this book also started talking about the cash box bracket, and it talked about self-employment and having a job and big business. And by now this book is probably outdated and the statistics in it are probably different, but just seeing that. And so like I put a little post-it note on these pages that I wanted to share with you guys, or these excerpts that I wanted to share with you, which are not many, but it was enough to like give you an idea of where I was coming from. But this, the life that my parents grew up in, they're both born in the 1960s, was a reflection of IBM. The guidance my mom gave me about money, she did the best that she could, but it was rooted in what the world that she knew. But as the world has radically changed, we don't know that world anymore. And that's what the first part of this book says, is I told you so. Not to be an I told you so, but I told you so. I've been saying this for years. There is no longer such a thing as a safe and secure job. Corporate America is a 20th century dinosaur, trembling on the edge of extinction. And the only way for you to have a genuinely secure future is for you to take control of that future. Here's what I wrote in 2001 in a book that was titled The Business School for People Who Like Helping People. In my opinion, the United States and many Western nations have a financial disaster coming, caused by our educational system's failure to adequately provide a realistic financial education program for students. That student's me. That student's the people that I grew up with. Like, I feel like people who are older than us grew up still in a certain world, and people who are in 30s, 40s, I feel like we're that in between. We were born in the 80s, and we got to see the shift firsthand in our school system of when they started taking away the art and music programs because they weren't as important. Or, we had computers in school and we were learning computer classes as built into our educational process. These kids are now learning almost everything on computers and laptops, and a couple friends that I have that are slightly older than me never saw a computer in their school existence ever, period, done. So when I say I feel like the middle gear, I really feel like the middle gear. And then here he is talking about that. And this is only a few pages into the book. And when he's sharing these things with me, I'm like, this is personal. I feel this way. So then he says, that same year in an interview for Nightingale Connaught, I said, if you think mutual funds are going to be there for you, if you want to bet your life on the ups and downs of the stock market, that's your retirement you're betting on. What happens if the stock market goes up and then comes crashing down again when you're 85? You have no control. I'm not saying mutual funds are bad. I'm just saying that they're not safe and that they're not smart. And I wouldn't bet my financial future on them. Never before in the history of the world has so many people bet their retirement on the stock market. That, to me, is insane. Do you think Social Security is going to be there to take care of you? Then you also believe in the Easter Bunny. And now these are the subjects, these are the conversations at the table talking about how now the government is out of funds for Social Security, and many people feel confused, nervous, frustrated, angry about their Social Security not being available to them. And this is a conversation that Nancy and I just had this week, talking about Theresa. When somebody feels scared, when somebody feels angry, when someone is going through the thick of trauma, do you think that you sounding Pollyanna sounds relatable to them? Even though you learned through your trauma what works and the positivity that works, how do you think that they're going to follow you to listen to what you're saying, or how they're going to connect to you when their world feels like it's crashing down on them? That's a good thought. That's good reflection for me. How is it? How am I going to be relatable to people? How am I going to make the connection? And how can I be as helpful and as loving as I want to be to people if I don't sound relatable to them, or I don't express to people where I've come from for why I'm so motivated to be the person that I am, or do what I do? So he says, in an interview I did in March 2005, the year I graduated high school, the number one strength of a paper asset is in liquidity, and that is also its number one weakness. We all know that there's going to be another market crash, and we're going to be wiped out again, so why would you do that? So what just happened? There was another market crash, and many people got wiped out again. Why? Because our habits and mindset caught up with us. In 1971, the American economy went off of the gold standard. This happened without the approval of Congress, by the way, but the important thing is that it happened. Why is that significant?
because it cleared the way for us to start printing more and more money as much as we liked without it being tied to any actual hard, real value. The shift away from reality opened the gates of the biggest economic boom in history. Over the next 3.5 decades, the American middle class exploded as the dollar devalued and the on-the-books value of real estate and other assets inflated. Ordinary people became millionaires. Suddenly, credit was available to anyone, anytime, anywhere, and credit cards began popping up like mushrooms after a spring rain. To pay off those credit cards, Americans started using their homes as ATMs, refinancing, borrowing, and refinancing again. After all, real estate always keeps going up in value, right? Wrong. By 2007, we had pumped as much hot air into this financial balloon as it could take. Then the fantasy came crashing down to earth again, and it wasn't just Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns that collapsed. Millions lost their 401ks, their pensions, and their jobs. The number of people living officially below the poverty line is rising rapidly. The number of people who are working beyond the age of 65 is increasing. In the 1950s, when General Motors was the most powerful corporation in America, the press picked up a statement by GM's president and turned it into a slogan that carried on for decades. As GM goes, so goes the nation. Well, folks, that may not all be good news, because when GM went in 2009 went into bankruptcy, and by that same summer the state of California was paying its bills with IOUs instead of cash, right now the percentage of Americans who own their own homes is dropping. Mortgage foreclosures are at an all-time high. The number of middle-class families is dropping. Savings accounts are smaller, if they exist at all, and family debt is greater. The number of people living officially below the poverty line is rising rapidly. The number of people who are working beyond the age of 65 is increasing. The number of new bankruptcies is going through the roof, and many Americans do not have enough to retire, not even close. Has all this bad news got your attention? Sure it has, and you're not alone. Americans everywhere have finally stopped rolling over and hitting the snooze button. Now you're awake to see what's going on, and it isn't pretty. So let's take a deeper look and see what it really means and what there is that you can do about it. But this book was written, well before 2000. Okay, so let's look here. 2010, the copyright was done. So that was 15 years ago. When you go to college, the content that you learn in college, by the time you're a senior and you're graduating, that information you learn, for the most part, is already outdated. The stuff that you learned as a freshman, there's been already so many advancements that what you know applies. Maybe you know fundamental things, maybe some things stick. But the world moves at such a fast pace now that it's almost like we collectively feel like we can't keep up with information. And then stack on top of all the information that moves at the speed of light is the misinformation that confuses the American public. So, and do we get to know that? Do we get to be told what is the truth? And I think that when we look at conversations like economy and politics, the way that we're going to be doing tonight with Peter, Angela, and Julian, that's what makes it so emotionally charged. When we just had this election in November, that contributed to the emotional charge of it. So now, here's the next portion of this here. And it says, during the Great Depression, there were people who made fortunes. And during the greatest boom times, like the real estate surge of the 80s, there were millions and millions of people who neglected to take charge of their future, who ignored everything I'm going to share with you, and ended up struggling or broke. Most of them, in fact, are still struggling or broke today. The economy is not the issue. The issue is you. Are you angry at the corruption in the corporate world, at Wall Street and the big banks that let this happen, at the government for not doing enough, or for doing too much, or for doing too much of the wrong things and not enough of the right things? Are you angry at yourself for not taking control sooner? Life is tough. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Moaning and groaning won't secure your future. Neither will blaming Wall Street, the big bankers, corporate America, or the government. If you want a solid future, you need to create it. You can take charge of your future only when you take control of your income source. You need your own business. And I'm not saying that having your own business is the only way to succeed. I'm just saying that when I read these things, I was crying while I was reading this book because I had studied all these things and I saw this for every job that I worked, because the advice I got from my business mentor was, look at the person in the room who's the boss. Look at the highest person. Do you want to live their life? Because if you don't want to live their life, then get out of there when you're at the bottom and find a place where you can look at the top of the pyramid and say, I want to be just like you. I want a life like you. But my values are way too intricate to look up at somebody else at the top of their pyramid and say, I want to be like you. I don't want to be like them. I want to be like me. So I created my own business because what I value and all the things that I want to have is a lot. And it's a lot of things that if I'm doing it for someone else, that it's a choosing. It's a constant battle of choosing things that I don't want to have to choose. And the beautiful thing about it is that when I have my own business, I don't need to choose. I don't need to listen to someone say, talk about this instead of that because we need to sell 20 of these in order to make whatever financial, whatever for the goal for this month. I have to eat just like everyone else does. I have to pay bills just like everyone else does. But I also get to decide how those bills get paid. And I also get to decide what I want to do with my life, because my life isn't just about a paycheck. It's about creating a life quality, and it's creating a life that I want to live in. So when I started creating this business, and how I talk to other people about business is, what is your dream life? Because we weren't just here to go to work, and we weren't just here to survive. How do you want to live is the question. And then the second question behind it is, what are you going to do about it? So then this chapter is called The Silver Lining. And it says, on July 13th, 2009, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything beforehand. Yeah. Okay. In July 2009, Time magazine ran a piece on page 2. They called it 10 Questions for Robert Kiyosaki. One of the questions that they asked me was this: Are there opportunities to create new companies in this turbulent economy? Are you kidding? Was my first thought. Here's how I answered. This is the best time. When times are bad is when the real entrepreneurs emerge. Entrepreneurs don't really care if the market is up or the market is down. They're creating better products and better processes. So when somebody says, oh, there's less opportunity now, it's because they're losers. You heard an awful lot of bad news about the economy. Ready for the good news? Actually, the bad news is the good news. I'll tell you the same thing I told Time magazine. A recession is the best time to start your own business. When the economy slows down, entrepreneurialism heats up like a stoked wood stove on a cold winter's night. What do the Microsoft and Disney empire have in common? Because the fact that they are both hugely successful billion-dollar businesses that have become household names? No. Although that is true, they were also both launched during the recession. In fact, more than half of the corporations that make up the Dow Jones Industrial Average got their start during a recession. Why? Simple. In times of economic uncertainty, people get creative. They break out of their comfort zones and take initiative to help make ends meet. It's a matter of good old-fashioned American entrepreneurialism at its best. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. For one thing, the market for new opportunity is ripe during tough economic times. 5 years ago, when household values were soaring and credits were available everywhere, nobody was hungry. People's bellies were full, and they felt safe, and few were looking for any alternative means of income. Employees weren't worried about the financial stability of their employers or whether a pink slip might be in their future. But now that layoffs are rampant and everyone is worried about what the future holds, millions of people are soberly reevaluating their finances and realizing that if they want to have a secure future they can count on, they are going to have to come up with Plan B. People today are hungrier than ever to earn extra money, and because of that, they are more receptive and more inclined to open their minds to new avenues. In fact, this was true even before the recent economic meltdown. Ever since the 80s, and especially since the turn of the century, the drive to control our own economic future has been building. Here's what the U.S. Chamber of Commerce said in 2007 report titled, Work, Entrepreneurship and opportunity in 21st century America. Millions of Americans are embracing entrepreneurship by running their own small businesses. 72% of all adult Americans, 72%. I just want you to know that if you got a 72 on a test, you passed. And if you got a 72 all through high school, you got a diploma. 72%, okay? That's more than half percent of all Americans would rather work for themselves for a job than for a job. And 67% think about quitting their jobs regularly and constantly. In 2004 of last year, Forbes magazine made a post that it was up to 84% of people were talking about leaving their jobs to create something else. And how, because we had COVID-19 and we had the stay home, they had the lockdown, it was talking about how now corporate America actually faced having to create more creative and healthier environments because people were more comfortable going out on their own and going to do things and embarking on a small business instead of coming to work and being miserable. For the first time ever, I think, in our reality, since this world that we created from the industrial age, and not we, that was created for the first time ever, I think that we are in a very renaissance. I would dare to say that this is the 2025 renaissance, or the renaissance of the turn of the century, because corporate America has never been so shook and so, what a diverse time to be alive. We have companies that make more money than we can dream of, and we don't even know who they are. We don't know what their names are. We have people who are out in the world like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. And Jeff Bezos started, he left a 6-figure business and a 6-figure career to make up Amazon because he was looking at how the internet was able to grow exponentially, and he was looking at the online economy, and he wanted to create convenience, and he created Amazon. But I think that there's a lot of people that will, like, you know, there's people who either really respect him and love him, or there's people who are like, Jeff Bezos. But like, he's just a guy who had a really great idea and was paying attention when the idea struck. I mean, I'm not going to get into all the curriculars of do's and don'ts and rights and wrongs. It's not my place, and I don't want to get into that. But like, when you think about, when you actually start to do the research of who this person was, what did they do, and how did they get started? They all started with an idea that came to them. They all followed this, you know, like, let's say a lot of them. Jeff Bezos didn't come from, like, let me rephrase what I want to say here. Not everybody's Rockefeller, okay? Like, sometimes Rockefeller is, you know, family money and stuff like that. And I'm not saying some people aren't greedy, but like, there's plenty of people who have become very successful people like Tony Robbins because they did their own work to get there. And they, you know, when I look at Tony Robbins, I have admire for him because, admiration. I have admiration for him because he started out in very hard circumstances and made himself what he is today. And he has helped people all the way through. And from what I know about being on the outside of him is that he has a very, very good heart, and he's helped more people than I can count succeed in their life. And same thing with Abraham Hicks. And there's people out there who have money, and they're not demonized for having money because of the people that they've helped along the way, and they created a life quality for themselves. It's okay to have money. It's okay to succeed. It's okay to exchange. I think, you know, the difference between an abundance mindset and a poverty mindset are tickets to being able to live life qualities that we want to live, or the way we think about something. That, you know, like he said, you know, you need money in order to succeed. And he goes, in some cases, yes, and in other cases, no. So here's this, you know, I'm just going to jump in and finish reading. So Paul, now I'm no economist, but I know someone who is. Paul Zane Pilsner. Paul is a whiz kid with Citibank, youngest ever vice president, and left the banking world to make millions going into business for himself. He's had a few New York Times bestsellers predicting the saving and loan crisis before it happened, and served as an economic advisor to 2 presidential administrations. He's someone worth listening to. Paul talks about a 180-degree shift in cultural values around the nature of career paths, with the conventional corporate employee career structure giving way to the entrepreneurial path. The traditional wisdom in the second half of the 20th century, says Paul, was to go to school, get a good education, go to work for a large company. That was literally word for word what I was told growing up. That you're a great author and you're a great illustrator, and I know how much you love crystals and healing, but don't do that. Go do this, because this is what is going to give you money. Trust me, your dad and I were artists, and although you're very creative and it's very beautiful to be creative, I don't want you to be poor. I want you to do something else. And for years, I wandered around trying to be somebody else and do something else, which really was one of the most hurtful experiences I think I had. Largely beneficial, lots of growth. I am able to bring so much back to the original thing that I wanted to do because of the journey that I took to be able to go ahead and do it. And at the same time, I remember having that conversation with my mom, and my heart breaking, because I had ever only been a creative, spiritual child. Crystals were a part of my life since I was 2 years old, younger even, and I always loved to draw and create art and take part in very creative activities and healing things. And I love people, and I love hugging people, and I love helping people. And I at the time was really big into writing. I won author of the month when I was in school, and I was illustrating with writing, and I was in this flow, and all of a sudden it was like the flow stopped, and I was like, what do I do now? Who do I become now? I got to be good at the computer. I got to be good at these other subjects in school. I have to figure out who I want to be in corporate America. I got a lot of work cut out for me. And then I did it, and I just kept trying to find a place in it. I worked with traumatic brain injury patients. I did real estate. I did all these different jobs. I went back to college. I was going to be a teacher, and I never fit. And it was so hurtful to not fit, to not feel right in my own skin, that eventually what I got led back to, or I led myself back to, or what source led me back to, was reclaiming the person I was before the division. And my God, what an amazing life experience. And I love even the story. I love the hero's journey of the division happening, going through all these different motions and pitfalls and challenges and successes, all to circle back to being the original union of person, and now taking all the things I learned in that journey and applying them to the union, and experiencing deeper wisdom and success and love. And if I had just started out of high school, I don't know who I would be. And I don't know the world I would live in, or what I would know or not know. But the fact that I did so many things on the way to coming back home to myself helps me to be so much better at all the things that I do with Zenshine. And I'm so grateful for that journey. So in here, he's talking about, Paul's right, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce report I mentioned also refers to a Gallup poll finding that 61% of Americans say they would prefer to be their own boss. Another poll, this one by the Fresno research firm Decipher, found that 72% of all adult Americans would rather work for themselves than for a job, and 67% think about quitting their job regularly or constantly. That's just really crappy life quality. And I've been there, and it doesn't feel good when you don't like what you do, but you need to do it to have a roof over your head, or a car, and have those things. And it's a blessing to have a job. And a lot of times we don't even realize that we have something that someone else wants. But the idea is that it hurts to not be true to yourself. It hurts to not be the person that you want to be, that you know you are. And it's one of the best feelings to own it. And it's not just about making a living, it's also about a quality of how we're living. People are waking up to the fact that they want more control over their own lives. They want to be more connected to their families, be in charge of their own time, work from home, determine their own destinies. In that Decipher study, 84% of respondents said they would be more passionate about their work, if they owned their own business. The number one reason they gave up from wanting to work for themselves, to be more passionate about my own work life. And that most of us are so brainwashed by our circumstances that we think of employment as normal. But far from being historically normal, the whole concept of being an employee is actually fairly a recent phenomena. During the agrarian age, most people were entrepreneurs. Yes, they were farmers who worked the king's land, but they were not the king's employees. They didn't receive a paycheck from the king. In fact, it was the other way around. The farmer paid the king a tax for the right to use his land. The farmers actually made their own living as a small business entrepreneur. They were butchers, bakers, candlestick makers who passed on their trade through the family lineage in what they have come down to us as a common last name. Smith for the village blacksmith, baker for bakery owners, farmer because their family business was farming, tailor because of tailor derived from the tailor's profession, and cooper, the old term for a barrel-making trade. These things are part of the fabric of who we are. It was not until the industrial age that new demand began growing, the demand for employees. In response, the government took over the task of mass education, adopting the Prussian system, which is what most Western school systems in the world are still modeled after today. Today, Prussian Empire time, today, Western culture. Do we stop to look at these things? Whoa. Have you ever wondered where the idea of retirement at age 65 actually came from? I'll tell you where. Otto von Bismarck, the president of Prussia in 1889. Actually, Bismarck's plan kicked in at age 70, not 65, but it hardly matters. Promising their old folks a guaranteed pension after 65 was not much of an economic risk for Bismarck's government. At the time, the life expectancy for the average Prussian was about 45. Today, so many are living well into their 80s and 90s that the same promise might well bankrupt the federal government within the next generation. And here we are, wild. When you research the philosophy behind Prussian education, you will find that the purpose was to produce soldiers and employees, people who would follow orders and do as they were told. The Prussian system is for mass-producing employees. In America, in the 60s and 70s, companies like IBM made employment for life the gold standard of job security. But employment at IBM hit its peak in 1985, and the whole concept of a solid, reliable corporate career has been in decline ever since. Now we're in 2025. I don't know if that really exists. And, the one last thing that I want to share with you out of this book is that I said he was homeless for a time. And that impacted me to start listening to him because, when you go through homelessness, when you go through trauma, when you go through hardship, it changes who you are and how you think about things, and it makes you an entirely different person. So, where is this? Here you are. Okay. It's time to take control. Chapter 6. It was 1985, and my wife, Kim, and I were homeless. We were unemployed and had little money left from savings. Our credit cards were exhausted, and we were living in an old brown Toyota with reclining seats that served as beds. At the end of the week of sleeping in our car, the harsh reality of who we were, what we were doing, and where we were heading began to sink in. After a friend realized our desperate situation, she offered us a room in her basement. When friends and family were informed of our plight, the first question was always, "Why don't you just get a job?" At the first, we attempted to explain, but we had a hard time clarifying our reasons to our well-meaning inquisitioners. When you're talking to someone who values having a job, it is difficult to explain why you may not want one. We occasionally earned a few dollars doing a few odd jobs here and there, but we did that only to keep food in our stomachs and gas in our house, our car. I must admit that during moments of deep personal doubt, the idea of a safe, secure job with a paycheck was appealing. But because job security was not what we were looking for, we kept pushing on. Living day to day on the brink of financial abyss, we knew we could always find safe, secure, high-paying jobs. Both of us were college graduates with good job skills and a solid work ethic, but we weren't going for job security. We were going for financial freedom. By 1989, we were millionaires. I often hear people say it takes money to make money. That's BS, and I don't mean a bachelor's degree of science. Our journey from homelessness to being millionaires in 4 years, then on a genuine financial freedom in another 5 years, did not take money. We had no money when we started. In fact, we were in debt, and nobody gave us anything along the way either. It also does not take a good formal education. A college education is important for traditional professions, but not for people looking to build wealth. If it doesn't take money to make money, and it doesn't take a formal education to learn how to become financially free, then what does it take? It takes a dream, a lot of determination, a willingness to learn quickly, and an understanding of which sector of the cash flow quadrant you're operating in. Hard work will not make you rich. There is this strange idea in our culture that says if you work really hard, you'll be okay. What a pile of baloney. And what's so tragic about it is that most people have been brainwashed to believe it, and they do believe it, even though we're all surrounded by tons of evidence to the contrary. What evidence? Just look around you. Do you know anyone who has worked really, really hard their entire life only to end up living a life that hovers just above or below the indignity and heartbreak called substance living? Subsistence living? Of course you do. We all do. The world is full of people who work hard and are most definitely not okay. And perhaps the worst part about it is that many of these unfortunates come to the conclusion that it was their fault, their personal failings. They did all the right things, right? But it still didn't work. Maybe they just didn't try hard enough, or they didn't get lucky breaks. Maybe they were just not cut out for success. Nonsense. The problem is that the hard work is a myth, and it's just that. The problem is that the hard work myth is just that, a myth. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that building wealth and financial freedom does not take hard work, because it does, and lots of it. I hope you're not naive enough to believe that idiots who tell you that they can show you a way to wealth that's easy and that's quick and that's painless. Because if you are, I know a bridge you can buy real cheap and an entire system of subprime mortgages and credit default swaps that might be just right for you. No, it takes hard work, all right. The question is, hard work doing what? I can already hear you thinking, doing what? Making money, of course, but not so fast, because here's the cold, hard truth lurking behind the sad error of our cultural thinking. Working hard at making money will never create wealth. People who work for income work harder and harder, only to be taxed more and more. Forget working hard at making money. All you do is spend it. Then have to work hard all over again. You might be asking, okay, so what do? You take control. Take control of what? After all, most things in life you cannot control. No matter how hard you try, you can't control the market, you can't control employees, you can't control the economy. So what can you control? You can control the source of your income. Building a business is the way that most of the very rich become rich. Bill Gates built Microsoft. Michael Dell created Dell Computers in his dormitory room. Still, historically, there have been very, very few people who have truly lived in the B quadrant. The B quadrant is the best place to begin generating genuine wealth, but at the same time, there are some barriers of entry that have kept most people out. For one thing, most people don't have the cash it takes to start their own business. Today, it costs an average of $5 million to start your own business. And for another thing, building your own business from scratch remains the riskiest of all the ways to become rich. The failure rate for new businesses is about 90% in the first 5 years. And if your new venture fails, guess who just lost $5 million? In my early years of starting businesses, I failed twice. And while it never pushed me into bankruptcy and I never got any government bailouts, it did cost me millions of dollars. Typically, when you start your own business, you have to make sure your rent, utilities, and the rest of your overhead are paid, your employees are paid, and your suppliers are paid, or you're out of business. So guess who doesn't get paid? You. And in the course of starting a new business, I'm not talking here about a successful business. You can easily go 5-10 years without taking a paycheck. Remember Kim and me sleeping in our beat-up Toyota? It wasn't fun. We could have taken jobs that would have immediately put a roof over our head. But as miserable as it was, and believe me, it was, we chose homelessness over employment because we believed in our dream of becoming business owners and living in the B quadrant. Most people do not have the mental, emotional, physical, or financial stamina to handle these conditions. It can be brutal, and it usually is. So I just wanted to share these passages with you because, like I said, when I read these books, or this book and many other books, I cried, and it was emotional, and it was reflecting things that I was already feeling and the frustration I felt being in my 20s and expected to succeed and generate a life for myself. And so many pieces didn't make sense. And when I started reading books like this, it helped me to understand myself and what I was thinking, feeling, and seeing, and start to make sense out of my own life. So when I started Zenshine, I had business mentorship and I had business counselors, and I had a lot of friends, and we had a lot of conversations, and I would watch the places that I worked, and I would see how they operated and who was in charge and how did the people live and what did the people money. I always was constantly looking at everything. And then I was always reflecting, how do I want to live? What do I want to do? And I met Steve Mazurko, and I went to a Living to Inspire festival, and he had a panel of millionaires on the stage, and he was interviewing them. And Brian something, who creates websites, was living in his car. And the guy who created Santal was living in an apartment eating ramen with like 4 other friends. And it was like a 1-bedroom apartment, and they ate ramen every day and walked the beach. And there were so many people there. There was Chris from Sail Away Coffee. And, you know, the common theme was that they had given up, you know, lots of ways for themselves to have life luxuries in order to create their own financial futures. And I was like, well, I've been struggling financially for most of my life because my parents were not Rockefeller people. They were good people, and they worked hard, just like Robert Kiyosaki said. But the harder they worked, the more they got taxed, the more they went through things. And so all these things were on my mind. And at the same time, I had psychic gifts, and I was really passionate about crystals and creativity. And I felt frustrated when I was in school and I watched art programs get cut and downsized because I was a big art student and valued that time with my teachers and music programs. And like I was in chorus, and I did personal independent studio art after school. And I think I just kept collecting all the ways that I wanted to do something. And Gandhi has this thing that's like, if you want to change, what is it? I know that people already know it. Be part of the change, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. That's what he says. So I take that sentence personally. You know, we could all sit around and we can all kind of be upset about what things are, but what are we going to do about it? And one day I was working, like I was a manager at a wellness center, and I went to go pick up a crystal for one of my friends. And I had all these ideas percolating from Living to Inspire. There was Charlie Rocket. We talked about manifestation. Like Living to Inspire was one of the coolest experiences because I didn't really work for anybody that believed in manifestation, but Steve Mazurko did. And to have Charlie Rocket talk about manifestation and the power of energy, and all these people sit in front of me who had made good income, who were great people, and be surrounded by great people was like, oh, this, like I met Dana Cavalier, the coach of the New York Yankees. I met Bob Proctor. Not Bob Proctor. Well, that name will come back to me. I met Charlie Rocket, Ada Asif from real estate, like a big real estate guy on Long Island, the football player, the Jets football player. I'm trying to remember his name. Eric Coleman, you know, and I met these really great people who helped a lot of people, and he listened to their stories and how they came to succeed in life, and that they did not get to their success through not having hardship. They just overcame their hardship. And I was like, okay, wow, this is big. This is amazing. I'm putting all these pieces together, going to work. And I feel like
going to culinary school brought me into, because my mom was like, well, you like creativity and you like art, why don't you go to culinary school? And that is not how either of us saw that going. Culinary school was super romantic, but you put in so much time and effort and hours, and you live in a kitchen, and the only way that you really make money working in a kitchen is when you take over that kitchen and dedicate your life to that process. So that was not what I wanted. I didn't want to be back, like shackled to the back of a kitchen. I wanted freedom, and I wanted to interact with people, and I wanted a family, and I wanted to be able to be home with my family and still do all the things that I love, and I didn't want to sacrifice those things. So I was watching all the servers and how the servers made money, and I was like, I think I can serve. But when you have an apartment and you don't have anyone who can help you pay for the things that you have in your life, you start taking the things, every move you make has so much weight to it, especially when you're a kid. I moved out when I was 17, and like my parents did the best that they could to financially provide for us, but it was hard for them. And I would be lying if I said that it wasn't. And most parents feel that way. And I was super independent and very creative and very headstrong, and I wanted my life to be my own. So when most kids are getting ready to go to college, I was moving out, and I still went to college. I put a roof over my own head, and I worked. I struggled and went to college at the same time when I was 17 years old, and I'm proud of myself for that. And then went to culinary school, worked in all these different places. My friends, helped me out, and I would not be who I am today without my friends. And so everyone that I met, everyone's like a tapestry in our own lives. And then, serving was like a little daunting, because you're depending on the tips that you get from people to be able to pay your bills. And then I succeeded at it, and it was really good. And I was like, wow. And then I started doing real estate, and everyone talked about real estate. And that is an industry where there is so much misled concepts about what it can be for you and what it actually is. You have to, or you should do real estate with a nest egg before you do real estate so that you can build yourself up and continue. And that is something there when you can make your own hours, and it takes a lot of work to be a real estate agent, and you should know that getting into it. And it really is for some people, and it is their passion. And for other people, they're doing it based on what they hear about it or what they think it will be. And then it's what it actually is. And so I did these sales positions, commission-based. That's the point of bringing up real estate, is it because it taught me how to live off of commission-based jobs. And then from being a server to being in real estate, then sales positions. I started working in sales jobs because I was like, well, real estate's not so consistent. I don't really like it, but I still can't do what I want to do. So let me try this next thing. Let me try sales. And I was good at sales, but I didn't like being a salesperson. And I really, really struggled doing sales. And I went back to bartending, and then I went to serving, and then I would flip-flop, or maybe I would do both at the same time, because I was trying to, I would see people who were in sales, and some were great and very transparent, and some were very scary and very more morally or ethically different than me, and I wanted to be a different person. So a lot of struggle was at that chapter of my life, but then I did it. I started working for a company that I was really proud to work with and for, and I had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath rent-to-buy house in Lake Grove, and my bills were paid every month, and I had some money left over, and I did some real estate while I was doing that, and I was making it. I had a brand new car, and I had a walk-in closet, and I had a closet full of clothes, and I had money, and I had a savings, and I was doing it. And when I started doing it, my depression got to be the worst it was ever, because now I'm living the life that my parents told me to live, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I feel so removed from myself. I feel so not like myself, and I felt like, how could I reconcile that I worked all the time? 7 o'clock in the morning, would go do my 9 to 5. I would do some real estate after. I work all the time. I may have all these things, but I don't stop working. I never see my family. I barely see my friends. We don't see each other. We're all in the grind together. What the F is my life? And it was right before I turned 30. And I was like, I can't. How am I going to have a kid? How am I going to juggle a family? How am I not? I would look at the people who had it and did it, and I'd be like, what the hell did you do that I didn't do? What, I went to college. I did it. I went to college. I went to culinary school. I worked with people. I work hard. I have a really insane work ethic. What are you doing that I'm not doing? What do you know that I don't know? And I would always try to learn from people. But at some point I met someone along the way that talked to me about alignment. It's like, well, it's really important to do something that makes you feel good about what you do. And it was like a resounding message from different people. And that started Zenshine. That was me going to the crystal store while I was a manager at the wellness center, going to get a crystal from my acupuncturist and seeing how the crystals were being sold only for metaphysical properties. And I had such a different relationship with them my whole life. And I was like, God, there's so much more to it. And this just makes me mad. Because this is what I see all the time. I go into metaphysical stores. They're selling crystals. Rose quartz is for love, and black tourmaline is for protection, and aventurine is for money, and pyrite's for money, and all my metaphysical property crap. Like, it's valid in its own way, but there's so much more to it than that. And even... it's like I'm grateful that they have the crystals and that they're there, and that the perception or the nonverbal perception of a lot of metaphysical stores is that they're spiritual hubs. And I felt like I was able to have that luxury of knowing that because of being so involved in this industry from such a young age. Like I went to my first crystal show at 5, that I saw them, my perception of them was that they were supply shops. You can get a crystal there, and you can get things that you need from them, but they don't necessarily always have the most authentic stuff, like the singing bowls. When the singing bowls became a trend, there are singing bowls that are from India that are hand created are much different than the commercially made colored singing bowls that are available for sale. So I'm not knocking anyone who owns a metaphysical store. I'm just saying that buyer beware, authentic or traditional from these places versus something that's been commercially made. And I feel like the more people are aware of what they want and where they're getting what they want from, the more you begin to, I don't want to say have the perception that I do, but it's like a lot of people who know, like if you become a sound therapist and you really take being a sound therapist seriously, you're going to shop for bowls in a different way, in a unique way, and you're maybe not going to want the commercialized cookie cutter made bowls. You're going to seek out somebody that can do handcrafted bowls for you, or glass bowls or something. With crystals, you don't want the person to pick up the crystal for you when you say, oh, hey, how are you feeling? I'm feeling stressed, anxious, happy, this, that, the other, whatever feeling you feel. Say, okay, well, this is for this, and here's your here's black tourmaline, or this is for this, and here's your selenite. This is for this, here's your kyanite. And like you never touch it, you never interact with it. Now what do? You go home and you go, like, this is what the woman said to me at there's this girl who inspired me when I had the experience at the crystal shop, and she had no idea who she is, and she has no idea how much she inspired me. But when I saw how the interaction was going, was just the 100th time I saw the same thing, maybe more than 100 times, where it's like, hi, how are you? Are you finding everything that you're looking for? Yes, I am. Well, no, I'm not. I don't really know what I'm looking for. My friends told me that they swear by crystals and crystals work, but I'm just not sure of what it is that I'm looking for. Okay, well, how are you feeling? Stressed, depressed, anxious, overwhelmed. I really just want to feel better. Oh, okay, well, here's citrine, and citrine is for this, and here is selenite, and selenite is for this, and here's black tourmaline, and black tourmaline is for this, and here's kyanite, and kyanite is for this, and here's this is for 12 to 16 times later. Here's this person who works at store, picks it up out of basket, he puts it in customer's hand. This is for this, prescriptions, bump, 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 bump. Oh, and you're going to need to clear your crystals. So here's that bundle of sage, and here's a plate, and boom, here's that. Okay, is there anything else I can find for you? If you think that this is an adequate spiritual experience that generates true connection, you may be new to this. And I'm not trying to say that from a place of ego. I'm trying to say it from a place of love. Because when I made communion with God, or my version of it, I sat in a desert by myself. When I pray and I feel this energy come in and I make a connection, it's like a source of energy that fills me and I feel satisfied. We technically don't need anything in order to do what we do and be the people that we want to be. Crystals participate in helping us ascend. They help us to heal. They help us to deal with our daily life. They help us with trauma. They can help us to have clearer communication. They can help us to have a stronger psychic connection. They can help us be more in our heart space. They can help us be more connected to source. But if you work off of the ideology that rose quartz is for love and black tourmaline is for protection and this is for this and this is for that, then you're gonna miss that. You're gonna miss that relationship or all the big benefits that come with the relationship if you work off the metaphysical property prescription based thing. And then she gets the things and she's online and I don't have time. I have to get back to the office and I don't want to be like, mess up the store. I want to be respectful of the store and its people's, but she gets online and I'm like, nice stuff you got there. She goes, yeah, I guess. I don't know, really. I guess I'm going to go home and figure it out. Go home and figure it out? Go home and figure it out? That's how I felt inside. No. What do you mean go home and figure it out? There should be a place on Long Island where you don't have to go home and figure it out, but you should also get the authentic information of how to work with crystals. And it's the connection between you and your intuition when you're picking out these crystals. Oh my God. Ugh. And then I thought to myself, well, Theresa, you've watched 100 times more about this interaction between people? And you're not happy about it every time you see it because you have an entirely different relationship with crystals and feel something so much bigger. I think it's time for you to do something about it because you keep waiting for someone else to do something about it is because this is not the thing that you're not supposed to do. And in that moment, there was nothing that I knew I was supposed to do more. I went back to the wellness center and I was talking about it. I was incorporated within the week. I moved from having a sole prop into an S Corp and I had all my names situated and I was off and running. I didn't have a business proposal. I didn't have a business plan. I was just tired of people not getting the full thing that I felt like they deserved to have and I wanted to do something about it. And I knew that I could. I'm like, okay, I'll do readings and I'll teach classes and I will offer things. Like, I just want to love people and I want to see people get the most out of what these things are. It's so simple. I just want to really be myself. And I want to see you be your best self while I enjoy being my best self. And many people don't know that in the beginning, I struggled so much with thinking, can I even put a price tag on these crystals? Can I even do that? Because I didn't like to do that. I didn't do it before it became a business. Why would I do it now? But I went to a crystal store and there was like this wall of really beautiful crystals. And I sat on the floor and I prayed with them. I was there for a while, like 20 minutes maybe. And I was just praying with them. And it's a store that I personally really like. And it always has really great energy in the store. And the crystals are fantastic. And I just prayed with them. I was like, can I do this? Is this okay with you guys if I choose this life path and I do this for a living? And they showed me a lot of different visions and gave me their blessing. And I overcame that part where I could make a life out of doing the things that I love to do, that I know that I'm good at, and I could help people, and I can take all these different ways that I love to help people, and I can do it bigger, better, and more. Natural products for your body, spiritual and personal development, classes, how to get into a place of peace. That's what all the podcasts are for. Taking Nancy, who's been my teacher, and oh my God, how she impacts my life in the best way, positive, and being able to bring her to you. Taking a friend like Peter and having a conversation instead of it just being him and I, bringing you guys into it. And then having the events. The events were meeting other people that I saw so much power, beauty, and value in, and saying, I want to help you succeed. I had confidence because I had gone through this process of praying with the crystals and having business mentorship and going to all these different events. I didn't lack confidence, and I had a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of passion and a lot of rah-rah can do. And I was like, when I would meet people who were so talented but didn't have confidence or didn't have the same life experiences that I did, I wanted to bring them into it. I wanted to share that with them and help them to succeed, help showcase their work, create opportunities. Even if I don't have all the answers now, even if I didn't have all the answers then, I was willing to do something about it and make answers happen. And anything that I learned of value, to share it with the people that I was working with. So when my business consultants were like, hey, Theresa, you should really just take care of yourself and serve yourself, get to a good financial place, and then go from there. I was like, well, I could, and I probably do really great at that, taking care of only me and pouring into my own cup. But business is not transactional. It's relationship, and it's your life quality, and it's how you live. And doing these shows were to come together and create a tribe and to help these vendors share what they have, and then to create a community space. Because all the people that I've counseled, whether it's coming to my class or doing one-on-ones with me, family breakdowns, relationship breakdowns, parent-child breakdowns, what if we create this thing for the community? And that's something that got mirrored. I was in part of Parent Leadership Initiative. And Parent Leadership Initiative and the business mentorship that I worked in both said, look at your community. What do you think it needs? Then go do it. So that's what we're doing here, is we're doing something to do it, to go do it. Nobody starts off perfect. Nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes. But if your heart is good and you're humble and you stay connected to the why, you will succeed, and you will get better and better with every passing thing that you do. I said a lot of things here today. Like I said, it's not scripted, and it's not well put together. It's not even well thought out. But I was thinking about the people that I wanted to contact, my friends, what I'm doing with this, like I said in the beginning. And it's just connecting all the ideas, connecting all the whys, talking to people about why they're getting involved or what they're getting involved in. When you support vendors, small businesses, local artists, you're not just sharing economy or sharing your money with them. You're helping an artist achieve their dreams. You're helping to keep a different type of economy alive. You're letting a vendor become a small business, and a small business potentially become a bigger business. And they're serving the community. And a lot of times what drives the vendor, the artist, the musician is not just the paycheck. It's the heart. It's wanting to share something, like a way of life. My friend had terrible skin after she had her daughter, and she made skin products. And I think her skin products are the best skin products I've ever used in my life. And they help me. I don't have bad skin, but I do like that her body butters are clean and light and natural and have all good things in there. I think that we live a lot of life from our own life experiences, and we make connections with like-minded others for the same reasons. So I know amazing people. I know so many good friends. I have such a big tribe at this point. I have a network of 60 different vendors that I work with and in. I meet new vendors all the time. There's 10 coordinators off the top of my head that I could talk about or talk to or pick their brain or learn from or do something with, or people who are doing it. And there's more coordinators popping up all the time. Our world is changing dramatically, and I think that we can't change the world by ourselves, and I think that we can't create a world that we want to live in by ourselves. But I think that we can do it with each other. And I think we can walk each other home. And I think that we all want to live in a world that is loving and respectful and kind and honest. That's the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where people make products that are good for my body and good for my brain and don't have hormone interrupters in them. And I want to put chemicals in my home and on my like. I don't want to put something on my body or in my home that has chemicals that are going to disrupt my natural process of physically being. I don't want candles to come home from whatever box candle store and affect myself or my family or my friends and loved ones. I would like to have a candle that smelled good, that's hand poured, that is naturally curated, that keeps the glass jar out of landfills, and burn that. And my friend Jovi does that. So when you see her and other candle makers, I'm not saying anything about any other person that makes candles. I'm just saying that what I think Jovi does is very special, and her heart and her intention and her love that gets poured into every candle goes into every candle. And I'm sorry that you cannot go just anywhere and get that. That's something that Jovi does. And there's plenty of beautiful, loving people all over Long Island and the world who make beautiful things. They're not, it's not just one size fits all, but when you go somewhere to these vendor shows, I think I mentioned this last night in the podcast or Vendor Corner, you're not just going to a place where you're getting the same thing every time at every show. This is not about, it isn't about candles and scarves and teas and all the other creative things that people make. You're meeting real people who are offering real things, because it's not always easy to be a vendor. People, who vend, they have a big why behind their doing it. And some people make it a full-time thing, and some people make it a part-time thing, and the people who make it a part-time thing often work full-time and then vend full-time. And so these people are making big, I don't want to say sacrifices, but making choices to work very hard to be the person that you may or may not dismiss or may not celebrate. And I think it's really important for myself personally to walk soft in the lives of others, because you don't know what they're going through. But what I do know is that art changes the world, and music changes the world, and love changes the world, and community changes the world. And if we are authentic and make real connections to source, we will better understand how to work with each other and better understand the relationship we have with ourselves. So I think that's it, and my phone's always on, and even though I'm crazy busy right now putting this all together, I always have my, just reach out, and if I don't get back to you today, I'll get back to you within the week, I promise. And I really look forward to being able to hang out with so many like-minded, beautiful, powerful, special people on February 7th at Feast for Your Soul. Because I love, in the creative process, I love creating a place for people to go to where they feel excited and happy and fun and lighthearted. They walk into a room and they're like, wow, look at this feeling, look what I feel inside. And they see these artists who are painting and doing their work, and their art's on the wall, and they have these really intentionally placed vendors who are offering them all these great things like aura photography or Reiki or readings, different handcrafted items. You have the musicians that are playing who are working on, how are they presenting the music to you, and people who are creating this menu, because it's food is art. There's a lot of people working hard to make this event possible, and I can't even express to you how grateful I am for everyone who takes part in it. And I'm so grateful to Jay for being able to bring Existence Plus magazine to myself and to the vendors, a place where we can create a further outreach of community through the magazine, because the show itself is 6 hours, usually 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, regardless of how long the show is. It is so quick. It's like a wedding, you're there, you spin around, you touch somebody's life, and then you're done. But once you're out of that scenario, once that's over, where does it go? The next show? Yeah. And I'd like to see something that's a little bit more than go the distance beyond just one show. You know, I want to talk about it and create community and network and create positive impact in the Long Island community. Create love. Thanks. Thank you for holding the space for me.